Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Diverse Podcast. My name is Toby, your host, and I'm here today with Filippo, who is going to tell us all about life at Capital One, which I'm really looking forward to. Filippo, welcome to the episode. How are you getting on?
Yep. Hello, everyone. My name is Filippo, and I'm currently a quality engineer at Capital One, recent graduate, and a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's awesome to have you here as well. And at the time of this recording, we've got lots of opportunities live with Capital One. So they are hiring for interns, placements, and grad schemes right now. So across both tech and sort of a strategy analyst position as well. So lots of exciting opportunities there. And what we're going to be talking about today is a little bit more about the scheme, a little bit more about Capital One for anyone who is interested in applying, or if you're in the application process already. But to get us started, Felipe, why don't we talk a little bit about your background? Let us know, how you grew up, where you grew up, and how you got here today.
All right. So I got the crash course of my life. I was born in Italy, and my family was an immigrant family. And then afterwards, I went to university in St Andrews up in Scotland. And after that, I found my job here in London, working with Capital One. And I studied computer science, and that's to be fair, as a child, I was always quite interested in the tech and computer science. That's why I kind of went through this route, and that's why I found my job here.
Yeah, amazing. And how did you find that transition when when you went from Italy to Scotland? Was that like quite a stark change there, quite a stark difference?
Well, honestly, I feel like culturally not as much as you think, because I feel like people are generally very welcoming and very nice. But honestly, the biggest difference probably would just been the weather, from sunny Isles of Italy to Scotland. Probably not the nicest change, but yeah, honestly, it's a different, definitely a change of pace. And here, I guess, as a small promo for St Andrews, it's a beautiful town, and honestly, ideal for anyone who wants to study and just enjoy the seaside.
Mm, awesome. So you found it easy to adapt to the culture, being in England from because I guess we've probably got some listeners who are maybe from other countries that are trying to get roles in the UK or maybe moved over a few years ago. But you kind of found any advice for people doing that change, or is it really just kind of getting stuck in and sort of to try to adapt to the culture?
Well, I find that specifically in unis, there's lots of support systems there ready for you. So if you do find this process difficult, there's lots of resources you can leverage to help yourself integrate into the community. Like I myself actually joined quite a few societies, such as badminton or I guess the Chinese Scholar Society, and that really helped me get to know people quicker. And it's like one of those most direct ways to just integrate yourself, put yourself out there.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the big benefits of uni, isn't it? And also graduate schemes as well. Being able to join with a group of other people that you can enjoy socials with and activities and so on. So, how did you actually find your way into tech then? How was that journey? Obviously, you did a tech related degree, but how did you find how did you decide exactly what you wanted to do and actually get your first opportunity within the tech industry?
Well, to be fair, I looked at quite a few jobs, because with the degree in computer science, you have quite a few options. So of course, the broadest term you could use would be software engineer, but obviously there's far like more niche branches and then more specifics you would have to get into. Such as I myself am currently working as a quality engineer, so I'm more on the testing and making sure like the code works as it is, compared to actually development. And so and so there's like hardware engineers, or like more low level people, and then everything. So of course it's this large range, but obviously when I was applying, I got my job offer here actually through the internship program. And through that, I was able to prove myself a good fit for the company, and that's how I got here. But in terms of actually applying and selecting the jobs, actually applied for quite a few and then selected just all the software engineer ones or data ones. And I wasn't really sure, because obviously as a university student, you don't really know exactly what you want. And then all the different, there's just so many job listings. And I applied to quite a few. And then once you take a deeper look at the job description, you're like, yes, this is the one that fits me. And then that's kind of what brought me here.
Yeah, and you mentioned when we caught up a while ago, and I had this as well. When I applied to placements, I remember doing loads of applications, and that being really difficult to get any responses and get through to next stages and things like that. I think you mentioned the same when you were applying for the internships, doing quite a lot of applications, right? And it being a bit of a tough one to get interviews and responses back. That's what you found, right? It was a bit of a challenge the first time around.
Yeah, I applied to like 40, 50, and to be fair, in my group of friends, I was definitely like the one who applied to apparently the lower end of number of applications. I know people who have applied to like 200 plus, and they have that all in an Excel sheet. And to be fair, I feel like lots of people, especially in uni, have felt that pressure and that stress during which you're unsure about the future. And this is definitely something which I'm sure a lot of listeners here will be going through. But the important thing is like what I felt. Well, if I look at back and now, you'll think it was kind of like a psyche moment. It was like I read the job description, I was like, oh yeah, that suits me. But honestly, I feel like that's kind of realistic in a sense. When I looked at it, it's like okay, I felt that they wanted me to learn and that they would invest in me. That's just kind of the feeling I was getting from the job description, because a lot of times you read it and you're like, it's often phrased like what you can give them and what they can select, but people often forget that it's a bi-directional process, and that you choose them, and then you also have the choice to like choose what company you want, as well as the company choosing you, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, as I mentioned, I had the same thing when applying for placements. You do lots and lots of applications, and you know, are obviously going to have plenty of responses that say you're unsuccessful. But I think it's obviously about persevering through that and kind of sticking through it. And as you found, you know, you did the Capital One Summer internship first. That got you in the door, and then you were able to kind of progress into the grad scheme after that, right? So I think that kind of shows straight away the power of the internship, really. So I think what you've mentioned already is really interesting in terms of looking at that job description. And I think the roles, and I've heard this from so many people, and you mentioned this as well, you kind of had that bit of a psychic thing of feeling like you were going to get that one. And I think, you know, when you see a role that is right for you, you do have that feeling. And suddenly the application doesn't take that long because you kind of, you know, you don't have to actually overthink it, because, you know, it is actually genuinely right for you. So that's, I think that feeling is definitely something to look out for, and something that you found. Was there anything else that really stood out to you about Capital One that made you think that's the place I wanted to start my career in tech?
Well, the one thing that was really attractive to me was the fact that they offered rotations, and specifically they said that like upfront, and then it's something they were really proud of. And honestly, now that I'm in the system, I really do like it. Is that basically we have a rotation system where you would go through three disciplines, and currently I'm in the mobile department, and then in the future it's likely I'll probably go through services and then probably web. And the thing is that in university, you often learn like a few things as well, but sometimes you have taste of all this, you just don't have the hands-on experience to actually know what you want to do, because it's a big choice what you're going to want to do for the rest of your life. So then having this sort of rotation to actually have a hands-on like real world production of everything means that you can make a better judgment, and obviously you can learn also a lot more than compared to sticking to one discipline.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so valuable. Did you have that in both the summer internship and the grad scheme? So like the summer internship, you were rotating around as well?
No, the summer internship actually, it was 10 weeks, so it was quite short. So it was probably a good idea that we only stuck to one. And actually, before we go any further, it might be a good idea to just say that the internship does not translate directly to a grad offer, and it is more in your individual performance, not in comparison to a cohort or something. It's just that you have to make sure you're the correct fit for the company.
Of course, yeah, you've got to come in into those 10 weeks and obviously do well, and you know, prove yourself, but also decide that you definitely want to stick with Capital One as well. So that 10 weeks gave you a bit of a taste, helps you learn, stick in one team for 10 weeks and contribute, and then obviously go through to the graduate scheme if you're successful, you know, once you finish your degree. So interesting. So that experience really benefits you and kind of give you that knowledge, and obviously made it a lot easier to do your applications afterwards, I'm sure.
Mhm.
What has it been like then on the working at Capital One generally? I mean, feel free to start wherever you like, but what was it? Yeah, what's it been like generally working at Capital One?
Well, I feel like what I really like is the environment. Okay. There's two aspects to this. One is the office itself. Obviously, the office in Nottingham is actually a very, very beautiful place. You have three floors, and it's designed with like a green kind of like a greenhouse situation where the skylight comes in. It's a great place. And second, of course, is the people and the environment that we aim and do create. Is that so? For example, the social aspect of it all is like we have lots of different social groups and who like organize different events. So for example, we had like a tech social, and then we also have like a grad social, and then they kind of stagger themselves such that you always have something to look forward in each week, and I find that very enjoyable.
Nice. Yeah, I think you mentioned the first few weeks there was always something going on, right? And all of these sorts of events to go to. Can you give us some examples? Is it kind of like activities you're doing, team building, or is it more like quite casual? Are you kind of will just meet up and go out and do something?
Okay. No, the ones that they're organized generally, they have like a specific thing in mind. So, for example, the tech one was, and we went to arcade for the afternoon, and that was just like 3 hours people playing Mario Kart, basically. It's like that's a I guess company culture thing, Mario Kart.
Nice.
But and the other ones, for example, you have board games, and then that's like another organized event. Although we also have our self-organized ones, but those ones are generally perhaps more they're less formal, and you'll probably go to a pub or something that's just more like a gathering of friends.
Mm, nice, nice. And you mentioned the Nottingham office, so you've got Nottingham, we've also got London as well for Capital One. Do you remember roughly how many people you joined with in your like cohort, your group that you're working with on the tech side?
On just the tech side, I wouldn't be sure on the exact numbers, but I would estimate around 20-30 people on tech in both London and Nottingham. In tech London we have five, and then there's more people in Nottingham because that's our headquarters and where most people are.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And that's really nice. I think it's obviously sometimes people think it's quite daunting joining a new company, right? Or, if you've been a student and then sort of graduating and going into that corporate world without any experience, it's a bit of a daunting experience. But I think when you're joining on a cohort with other students, it's kind of it makes, I think, the whole process a lot easier because you kind of got each other there to kind of straight away as a sort of a social system and to kind of enjoy it with as well. And so I think that's probably a big advantage you have with the grad scheme, joining in a cohort as opposed to just being that one new person by yourself. So I think it's a great way to start. How about any kind of development sort of things? So did you have like workshops or any skills developments that you would do throughout the time at Capital One that would help you as well and improve in terms of your professional skills?
Well, yes, actually, we have lots of like company organized ones for like technical skills, and this is just to get you up to speed for your job. And so obviously, I would have technical specific ones like I would learn Kotlin or like or app design, and but and here at Capital One we actually have a lot of focus on like soft skills as well. And those workshops that they would organize things which I honestly would not have even thought about. And then so we just had like I just last week I had one on about expressing yourself in confidence, and that's like if you think that's a very narrow field, but honestly that was quite an enjoyable and long workshop where we all just were able to spoke minds learn how to create like this environment.
Interesting. So what type of things would you cover off in that and the expressing yourself bit? What does that involve? And yeah, feel free to share anything that you learned. That might be interesting.
Well, okay, no, like we learned well, first of all, we had like this whole demo of like positive reinforcement, basically like when even when someone presents an idea which perhaps you don't agree with, you would initially say that you have to like give them a benefit out and say yes. It's like the power of yes, basically. And when you do that, they would continue thinking, and they perhaps would like give up new ideas, and generally in such an environment, people are more likely to speak up, and then everyone kind of chimes in. It just creates like this kind of chain of thought, which everyone contributes in.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think communication is obviously such a massive part of work, isn't it? Right. Like, because you're in a scenario where you've got your manager, you need to get your work from them, you need to feed back to them, things you've been working on, or, if there's a project and sometimes things go wrong and you've got to like communicate that and get around it together. Right. And ask for feedback, give feedback, all these different things. So yeah, no, I think it's really important to get that training for that extra development. And just on that, in terms of the setup, do you have, obviously it's normal to have a line manager, but is there anything else as well that would give you extra support, like any extra mentorship or anything like that?
Well, yeah. Here we have such a system where every new grad would have a mentor and a buddy, as well as obviously the line manager, and they all serve different support roles in your Kaplan life. And then so for line manager, it's obviously the one who looks after you and is responsible for you. And then mentor would be the one which you probably reach for when you have like technical questions, or when you reach something in the job which is like a blocker. That's who you reach out for. And lastly, the buddy is someone who would still be a grad in the grad system, probably just like maybe a year above you, and then that's when the person who you look for like more friendly advice would have you hang out with away. And and to be fair, the system allows for such that for every scenario you know who you'd be looking for, and that I feel like if you only had line manager, it'd be quite difficult because some things you probably wouldn't talk to your manager for on just like a daily basis situation.
Awesome. No, that's so a real support system there to lean on, buddy, mentor, and a line manager. You've got kind of everything you need there. That's really cool. Obviously, this is the Diverse podcast, so it's always great to hear a little bit about diversity and inclusion as well, and that side of things. I think you mentioned when we caught up a while ago that there's quite a lot of diversity and inclusion initiatives that Capital One put on. Have you been to any of those networking events or groups? Anything to share on that?
Well, yeah, actually, the one we've been to most recently was one in Women in Tech. And of course, okay, wait, I feel like that might cause a bit of confusion. I don't identify as a woman, but I do go as in support as an ally. And it's all these groups for both. We have groups like Reach, which is in support of racial minorities, and we have like allies, we have women in tech, and it's all to support people who are perhaps underrepresented in the workforce. And even if you don't identify specifically in the group, you would probably go there and then to show your support as an ally and then kind of promote that. And I went to women in tech, and it was just to help people who perhaps do not have as much technical experience, and to just kind of learn about these new frameworks and how to better integrate in all these technical skills as well.
Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, and it's amazing to see the focus I think Capital One has on DE&I, because not all employers put on these kind of sessions and events and have these networks internally. So I think that's wonderful that Capital One are doing that and focus on that. And we've also partnered together as well to help candidates from our community, our network, to get roles at Capital One as well. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we've got those internships, the grad schemes and placements live. So hopefully we'll be seeing some people from our network join yourself at Capital One. That would be really cool. For anyone who is interested in the tech role, it could be the internships, all the grad schemes, I suppose. Is there any like projects you could tell us about that you've worked on, or that you've really enjoyed at Capital One to make it even more real for them? And I know you mentioned when we just jumped on, you've got a few releases that you can't talk about that are top secret until they go live. But anything that you can tell us about that's already in the world that you worked on?
Ooh. Ooh, okay, actually. No, because I realized that all the things I worked on just obviously haven't been released yet. So if
Okay.
I do say like, it'd be like complete breach of confidentiality. But but yeah, the one which is already out there in the real world is that actually Cap1 hosts a lot of hackathon events. And these ones generally happen in university, and we have like I worked on the hackathon portal, and it is something where generally you so okay, I was on the front end side of that, and where to not get too technical, you are people can go on there and then retrieve the questions and have receive technical support for whatever they want. And when we host these events, we aim not just for people studying computer science who still do programming, but we also want to incorporate we generally had different themes. So previously we had things like making banking for better. That's kind of our motto, but yeah. That was the theme for the hackathon, and that means that we are hoping to get people from diverse backgrounds to give their own interpretation of the thing and try to contribute in that. And obviously, of course, there's a little bit of programming, but it's all just like a bit of a collaboration project. And yeah, I'm proud to say that that's out there in the real world, and people can actually visit that their own.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. And I guess for anyone who doesn't know, what when you say QA engineer, I think some people they'll know straight away, yeah, that's I know what that is and that's what I want to do. But for anyone listening who's maybe not familiar, how would you describe that role, or that position to them?
Okay. Well, QE stands for quality engineer, and it is still a programming role, as in I'll be the one who will be writing the tests, and and another part of it would be to actually do exploratory testing. So a lot of times, people, you might, like, when you're on a website or on an app, you might notice like, hey, that looks a little funny, and then that's kind of what we're looking for as well. And so every time, like every day, we'll just spend like maybe half an hour or so just like flicking through the app, making sure that everything is as expected. Another thing that people may not appreciate as much is that we do a lot of accessibility testing. Is that if you ever think about how everything is kind of just flows in your hand, or like how that feels natural, it's kind of what we investigate as well, and make sure that even okay that as well as people with disabilities would also be able to use the app. And that's kind of what we strive to make sure. It's just like, okay, wait, so the voice over here is correct, the tag is fine. That's, yeah. And so it's like we do a lot of different things, and we also take care of a lot of like admin side, so we can like have the release form signed stuff. But yeah.
Awesome. So sort of like testing the app, make it so it's accessible, make sure it works well for the customer, and it's kind of smooth, easy to understand, really simple. That's interesting. I used to be a product manager when I used to work at BT Sport. So we obviously every team in this sort of world is split up differently, but we would have, I guess, I was the product manager, and we'd work with developers and QA testers and so on. And part of my job was to kind of it's pretty fun, really, just like play around with the app and just see what I thought about it, and how it could be improved and how the journey should be. And I worked on the Apple TV app. So most people don't know about Apple TV, but it's kind of like a device where you can kind of watch things on your screen. So I would be sort of if I did this on the controller, then something would happen on the screen, and I would then feed that back to the testers and say, actually, no, we want something a little bit different. So I really enjoyed it because you got to think like a customer, and kind of see how a product is actually developed over time. But I did find that as challenging, right? Because once you once you get your head into the app and you see it all the time, it's quite hard to take yourself out of that zone, right? And imagine you're a customer who's seen it for the first time.
Well, I find myself looking at apps completely differently now, because even right now when I'm on a phone and I scroll through like, and then I notice something weird, I'm like, ha, like their quality engineer messed up there.
Nice.
I just spot these little things more, and I feel like I've had like at least a little bit more attention to detail now, because you generally don't even think about it. You just like refresh the page, or you come back and like exit the website and then come back in, and you just completely forget about it. But now I'm like, okay, I have to record this down, and yeah, it's like a whole process.
And do you think that the role suits someone who's obviously interested in tech, interested in sort of product development, who has good attention to detail? Those are the kind of things you think you need to sort of be well suited to the role?
Yeah, definitely. And you have to be quite meticulous about everything, because we do this thing called regression testing, where basically whenever we introduce something new, we want to make sure nothing previously is broken. And that means that you have to go through this again and be quite careful that everything you do is still exactly the same. And that could take quite long.
Mm. Yeah, perfect. No, that's really good to know. So yeah, hopefully lots of people are interested in those tech schemes now that we've kind of covered off a little bit what those could be like. For anyone who, and it's maybe interesting to think back, Filippo, at the beginning of your journey when you were first applying to these internships or grad schemes, or even once you got the role and you were adapting from uni into the working world. Is there anything that you really wish you knew before starting your career in the tech industry? If you could talk to your younger self now and go, you know what, Filippo, you need to bear this in mind, or you should know this before you start your journey into tech, that might be useful for the audience.
So it's one of these like the moments where I should pass on my nuggets of knowledge. But
Please do.
um okay, well, the one thing I would say is soft skills. Okay, so as a teenager and as a child, I was like, okay, I don't like people, and that's why I shall study computer science. But clearly, that's not the thing, because day in day out, you have to communicate with a lot of people. You're working in a team, and to be fair, I feel like I wish I would have learned like focus a little bit more on networking and my social skills as well. And so like for example, communication, how to publicly speak clearly, because you have to speak in a lot of meetings and just express yourself in a concise manner. And then learning to speak with people with different roles. For example, when you speak to your manager or like when you speak to your friends, that'll be like a whole different dynamic. And then that's something which I wish I would have focused more on before.
And why is that? Why have you found that to be something that is really important for you?
Well, because when you're speaking to different audiences, it's like there's different, I guess, different techniques and energies you have like to capture a room of like 40 people or so. You you have to like speak quickly and quite loudly and be quite, your energy level has to be quite high. And
Mm.
then and and for example, we would have these QE COP meetings. I don't even know what COP stands for now I think about it, but like conference of something. Okay, yeah. But so then obviously in there to capture everyone's attention, make sure everyone's on the same page. You have to speak confidently. You have to like project yourself. And while obviously in a more intimate setting, like when you're with one or two people, you have to you can speak more freely, and then you don't, if you bring that same level of energy, if you tell like one person, it's like hello manager, that'd be pretty weird.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like when you're presenting, or you're in like a stand-up, we call it. When you've got like
Yeah.
the people in the team stood up and you're talking together, you need to be a little bit more dialed up, a little bit more energetic.
Mhm.
And yeah, as you said, like project your voice, which so it feels like all the any practice you get doing like presentations at uni, all those kind of things, they're always really awkward. And I remember feeling really nervous about having to stand
Yeah.
up on stage and do those things at uni. And I was just like, I would hate having to do them and think, oh, why do we have to do these things? But then when you get actually into the working world, it is so useful to have a little bit of that experience and background, or if you haven't done that before, to get that experience, because it's such an important skill you have. And then when it comes to doing like a Teams call presentation or whatever, those things feel a lot easier once you've done a little bit more of that. The more challenging side of things. So that's really good to know. So working more on those soft skills, regardless of what role you're in, you think would be really good advice. That's really good to know. So I hope everyone's taken a lot of lessons from this, from what you've spoken about. I mean, it sounds like you've got an amazing experience so far with Capital One, with all that support, the rotations, the sort of the events, the social side as well. And you getting to actually do meaningful work, which hopefully we can do another episode in the future and you can tell me a bit more about that. But yeah, it's great to hear some of what you've been working on. Is there anything else that you want to let everyone know as we close out? Any last pieces of advice or any words to share with anyone?
Um, okay, well, to be fair, I've said these to a lot of people, but basically, I find that people in my university also have reached out and tried to contact me. But I feel like there has been an increase in stress and anxiety, especially regarding like the job market and whatnot. And even people in like first year of uni, they would be stressed about finding a job when they have barely started university. And one thing I just want to say that is that you will have a lot of rejections and things, but remember that you only need one, and there is always like one job out there which suits you, and and you have to find the one that suits you, not just like it's not just a unidirectional process.
Mm.
Yeah, probably phrase that poorly, but yeah,
No.
yeah.
It's I totally get it. Yeah, it has to be. It's a two-way thing, as you said earlier on as well. You need to want the role in the company, and they need to want you as well. But you also get a say in that. You also get to choose. And no, I'm really glad you say that, because a lot of people do worry. But a lot of times what we see is people do get a little bit stressed and worried, but then it's the next one they actually find is the opportunity for them. So
Mm.
unfortunately, that's just that you've got to just keep going. You just got to keep knocking on that door, and it could always be that next door that opens up and has that opportunity for you. So I think that's a perfect note to end it on. And we'll have the links to the opportunities as well in the description for the episode. So with Capital One, so if you're listening right now, as I said, we've got those internships, strategy, and tech as well, and grad schemes as well, live right now, and also a placement as well in tech if you're looking for a sandwich year placement. So lots of opportunity there. If you're listening a little later and those have closed, then there's always entry level and junior positions as well at Capital One that you can go and check out. So head over to their website, or we'll even link it in the description, and you can find out a little bit more. But Filippo, thanks so much for joining. Really, really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on and sparing some time. And I think you've gone a long way to help give some insights that are going to be really useful. And I'm sure lots of people will be excited to apply for Capital One. So yeah, really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me, and thank you guys for listening.
Nice.